it will definitely have a cost impact. And why I say this is when you realize that it is one of the 3 highest killer diseases, which has a lot of concerted efforts, both globally and locally, as a country level. And now that health is a devout function, even at the county levels. So I would say that we've made good progress as a country in the fight against malaria. Few years ago, not long ago, like 10 years, malaria really used to kill. The prevalence was more than 20%. But we've seen a decrease in prevalence rates. The last indicator survey, which was conducted, I think, in 2015, showed that as a country, we are at a prevalence rate of approximately 8%. Of course,
from the previous one, which was 11%.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm sure there are more studies which are going on. We may soon be getting new figures, even tomorrow as we celebrate.
Right.
That is from the Division of Malaria Control Program. Yes.
Yes, and let's maybe begin with the basics. What is malaria, you know?
Interestingly, malaria is a protozoa disease, infectious disease. That means I can infect you, you can infect me, or anybody else. And malaria is caused by a plasmodia. And there are 4 types of plasmodia. The most common, which is very prevalent in sub-Saharan Africa and also in Kenya, is called the falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum. The others, there is the vivax, there is ovale, there is malariae, but the most prevalent species that we've been seeing circulating around is the Plasmodium. What is important to understand is that contrary to what many people think, or what actually I think needs to be demystified, is that it is not the mosquito that causes the malaria.
What causes the malaria, Doc?
The malaria is an infectious agent. I think the right way to put it is that we, human beings, are the one who infect mosquitoes, and then mosquitoes transmit the malaria and continue infecting other people.
Okay.
Why is this so?
Yes.
Maybe just briefly to explain. When you look at the basic biology, what we learned in the primary school, mosquito is an insect, has 4 stages of reproduction.
Yes.
So when a mosquito is newly hatched, it does not have the plasmodia. So it is malaria-free. What now happens is that the plasmodia uses the mosquito as a vector.
Right.
Whereas the human being is the host.
We are the host?
We are the hosts. We human beings are the hosts. So the role of the mosquito in this case is just to transmit.
All right.
Yes.
And maybe, Doc, you could explain a little more. You're saying that we are the host for this plasmodium.
Yes.
Maybe how, is it automatically found in a human's body, or are there contributors to having this plasmodium?
Okay, what has happened, Purity, is that we've had these agents, and we still have them, even today. But they do not always cause infections, because our immunity, especially when we have good immunity, good body immunity, then it means it is able to suppress not just the malaria. So many other agents which are circulating in the air could be found in the food we eat, the air that we are breathing, the water we are drinking. So malaria as a parasite has been with us and continue being with us for a very long time. And the reason why we are saying we are host is because I could be hosting the parasites, but I'm not getting infected with malaria. But when the mosquito does a blood meal from me, goes and infects or bites, for example, the high risk, a pregnant mother, then because the immunity is somewhat suppressed by the nature of their pregnancy, then they are at a higher risk of developing malaria. So what we are trying to say is that we live with malaria. It's part of us. Right. And especially in the high endemic areas, what we call the lake regions and the coastal regions, where the prevalence is as high as 27%.
Right.
Yes.
Are these sites the breeding sites for malaria, or why do we have the prevalence so high in lake areas?
Well, thank you for that question. And I think it has a lot to do with the environment. You realize that the lake region, the coastal regions, malaria is an endemic, as in it is there throughout the year, regardless of the weather patterns.
Right.
However, you realize that in some places, especially the highlands and the arid and semi-arid, the prevalence of malaria tends to increase during this season which you're experiencing, which is the rainy season.
Right.
Why is it so? Number one, the life cycle of the parasite itself requires some certain degrees of temperatures. For it to undergo what we call in medical terminology as the sporologic cycle, so that it is able to complete the cycle, so that it is able to become infectious. So what happens during the dry seasons, when we have less rains, means we have less breeding grounds for the mosquitoes, which means that the temperatures are also altered, so the replication cycle of the parasite is interfered with, and thus the prevalence. But then you realize in the coastal regions and in the lake basins, we tend to have a lot of what we call conventional rainfall throughout the year. And for that reason, also because of the water bodies, among other factors, there is an increase, or rather a prevalent degree of mosquito breeding. And the infectious agents now are able to complete their cycle under those temperatures. So that makes those areas to be highly endemic. The other areas, the ones I talked about, the low risk and the highlands, it is less. And central Nairobi is considered low risk with less than 1% prevalence.
Right.
However, it's important to know that because of a lot of, intercountry movement up and about, there are still so many cases of malaria being reported in Nairobi County, despite being one of the low. Though we attribute this much to, the movement being...
Or the
No,
movement,
the movement.
traveling in and outside the city.
In and outside the city.
Right.
We have one of the various places where Kenyans have become very good at doing business, the Southeast Asia, which is a high malaria prevalence countries. And also, as you realize, there's also cross-border movement between our neighboring countries, Uganda and Tanzania, Ethiopia.